Hey folks, welcome back. It's the Big Barn Build. I'm multitasking today, but I wanted to share with you what we've been up to in the last week. As you can see behind me, there's some stud walls. We've got some wiring going in. It's been a busy one, and it's going to be a nice jumbled video for you. So stick around, let's make a start. Right, so after last week's productive bit outside doing the block work and some of the concrete, it started raining. So we're going to move inside and just hop around from jobs, but we're going to start on the upstairs stud walls. A little bit of planning to do where they're going to sit in relation to the steels, but I think we can make some progress today. So most of our walls that run east to west are going to sit underneath these steel members here. That way we're going to use the 120mm stud work. They'll sit a little bit wider than the steel, so whatever finish on the walls we're using, i.e. plasterboard, can sail up either side of it and basically conceal that steel. What we need to do first though is to drop down a line or a plumb below where these steels are, and then we can map it out. I think what we're going to do is lay out all of our timbers, fix them down, because with these walls, unlike where you've got a square top and you can build it flat on the floor, we're probably going to have to tailor it to the pitch of the roof and things like that. So we're just going to lay out a maze of plates on the ground, and then we can work from there, work upwards, and then secure things up into the steel afterwards.
Pick a line, any line. Are you on?
I'm on. Right, first the money down, so that is the end of the bedroom. This is the master bedroom. I'll show you a plan because then you'll know what we're doing. Here you go, hope you can all read upside down. This is probably the easiest way because then you'll see what we're doing. So that wall we've just put in is this one here, which is the end of the master bedroom. So that can go in later, but all these primary sort of stud walls we can put in now. Everything running this way is what sits below these steels, so that's fine. Then we're going to put in the ceiling battening, or we're going to use a metal tracking system, and then once that is in, we can then build the stud work underneath those. This corner here is what we've just mapped out, so that's there, and then we'll put a little nib the other side for a door that goes into that bedroom. So this line here is the one we're going to come along now. Slow and steady wins the race. We're just thinking through a lot of these walls. What's on paper doesn't always marry up to what it needs to be because things change, requirements change. We realise that all the bedrooms really need to be even for the kids because, you know, it's not going to go down well if we stick one in a little cupboard in the corner and one has a giant room. So we've got to even things out a little bit and make sure we're happy with where things fall. Also, we've got some decision making to do at the other end. So let me show you what we've done so far and what we're going to change our mind on. Landing is pretty even all the way along. Handrails either side we'll build later. But where we get to this end, we started kind of mapping out bits here. Excuse all the dead flies on the floor. At some point in this wall along here, there'll be a door into that bedroom. We can decide where that goes in a minute. But then what we decided is we still want that nice big tall window in the middle to be a feature that you can see all the way down through the building. Therefore here, rather than having sort of a dog leg where it comes across, we're going to put another curve like downstairs in. So we're going to curve that, which just means that as you come back into the building, you'll always be able to see the full width of that central window. So now we know what we're doing this end, we kind of park most of that and concentrate on getting the other end sorted. Remember, eventually the staircase comes up here, so there'll be a wall up to probably 600 or 700mm from the corner. So we've got a little bit of handrail there. Then that will be open up to the top of the staircase. And then this section here becomes a full wall where the bathroom is.
Trade tensions with Donald Trump's global tariffs will impact growth this year. And England lionesses golden area with international football. No one's 53.
Well, that's the first bit of framing done on the first floor. We've got almost 3 rooms. Well, we can picture the 3 rooms, the spaces now. This one looks huge because it is at the moment. We've got some intermediate walls to partition off the ensuite and things like that in the future. But the main structural walls, or the walls that are kind of the perimeter of the rooms, are all in now. So this end's got to be plumbed up. We can't do that until we do this stairwell, which I'll show you in just a second. Now, we weren't exactly sure how high we were going to take the top of that stud wall. At one point we were going to put in a flat section of ceiling, so we've got more void for our ductwork. We've now realised that we can probably get away without doing that, because that would also mean a change in pitch in the skim halfway up the ceiling, which I don't think is going to get really accurate. Or even a talented plasterer, that's probably quite an annoying detail. So if we can take the ceiling all the way up to the top where it intersects with the wall, it's probably a neater finish. So we're actually going to extend this wall up. We've got some iJoy soft cuts, which takes us up high enough. And then our ceiling battening, or the sort of tracking system we're using, will go up and meet into that. So we'll end up quite neat here with the ceiling, and we've still got that 170mm void up there for running ductwork through on this side of the building. But of course, once you've got ductwork up in a purlin void, you can't cross through where a purlin is already there. So we'll need to come up at the far end behind me and then come along and serve these 3 rooms on one branch, and then deal with this one as a separate. So we'll have a flow and a return, the exhaust and supply, I should say, coming up and down on both sides. And then next week we'll run a wall along from the end of there to the corner of the stairwell, which will create a bathroom and then a sort of storeroom, clothes storing room. Now, up until this point, we've done majority of these walls in 120mm, and that was okay. We now realise we didn't need to go quite that big. We did on this one, running down the spine of the building, because we had that steel square column, which is 100mm, so we had to have a wide enough stud to sail past that on both sides. Whereas these steels, the rafters here, are actually 90mm, so we can just use regular 4x2 or 95mm stud work for the rest of them. We can still manage to get our wall up either side and box those in so they're not visible. There are some places where we're going to have visible steelwork in the middle of the hallway, but that's fine. We still haven't decided whether we're going to make them into a feature or whether we box them, but we can deal with that at a later point. Quite a colossal amount of timber when you're doing 400 centres on such long walls. We made a decision, therefore, for some of these smaller walls, which are shorter as well, that we've gone to 600 centres, which, because we've just been working in 400 centres, looks ginormous. However, this one is one of the walls that gets skinned with OSB, and therefore we've got strength in that, and also the plasterboard hasn't got a big span to deal with either. So OSB and plasterboard on those walls, and I think we're just saving ourselves. I mean, it might only be 2 or 3 studs, but it's kind of worth doing, and it just kind of reduces the amount of timber that we're going into such small walls. Alright, it's all changed today. We've got first fix electrics going in, and we're battening out the walls, so something a little bit different to share with you. Right, let me give you a walk around and show you what we've been up to. So first fix electrics is started. James is here. We're kind of working room to room, lighting at the moment for the main area, so all the spots, feature lights and wall lights and things like that. So whilst that's going in, Tom and I are doing the last of the taping and the battens around all the perimeter of the building. So in the kitchen here, I'm just taking up these windows, and we're beginning on this counter battening. So this creates our service cavity. We've already done the annex, so I'll show you that. So as you can see, this is all now battened out 400 centres. So the option of going vertical or horizontal. If we go vertical, we would have had to have stuck at 600 centres, which is okay, but we felt like 400 was better, and in which case, if we wanted to screw into the studs, our studs are at 600, so we needed to go horizontal. That was the only option if you want 400 centres, unless you were happy just going into the OSB, but I feel like this is a better option. And these have been spaced in such a way that our bottom one here is at the correct height that a socket can sit on top of that, so the box behind can be fixed into there. And then the same on this one. This rail here will match up with any of the noggins that we've got in the stud walls, and in which case our light will sit just underneath there. That wasn't necessary. We could have just kept strictly at 400 centres, but I think this way it makes the layout for the wiring a bit easier, and it's pretty much 400 centres, just slightly less actually. And that's only really on the external walls where we need to do that. So all of this one, and then of course this green wall that comes around the pool court, and basically anything that's green, which is our airtight layer. By doing this means that we can now run cabling, pipework, any other services within this void, and nothing goes in or out through the green. That's our sealed layer, which is continuous from floor, wall to ceiling, and hopefully that's what's going to give us the efficiency in the building. If we start going through there with all our plumbing and cables, it's just a whole load of leaks. And the other thing we can do, where we've got one pipe that does go through the green, we've got a special kind of grommet, airtight grommet, that we can seal to the green, and then that seals to the pipe. So there are ways around it, and of course even our conduit that comes up through the slab in various places around the building, that's not airtight because it's an open vent going all the way to outside. So where pipes and services come through in those, we'll need to seal the ends of those, both for airtightness but also for rodents. So while this one isn't battened, James has already been ahead, so this room is pretty much there with first fix. I can't quite remember what's what. Joe would know. Oh, it's all around here. So that's the wall light. TV here, so there's still data cable and stuff to run through. Another wall light, a socket. This is a raised area up here with a window seat, so slightly different accent lighting, which I think is what that coil there is. Wall light, socket, replicated down the other end, and two pendants. Lighting and power is going to be one thing that everyone's got an opinion on. You can go to the extremes. There's all the really high-end smart home lighting systems, and then there's very much conventional, and I think we're going to sit somewhere in the middle, so there will be some automation, but we are wiring everything with 240, rightly or wrongly. I think that's what we're going to stick with. So the other option would have been to run the, I think it's called Lock Zone, anyway, it's one of the brands that do the smart automation, and nearly all that lighting runs through 24 volt, in which case you have to run a different type of cable. And I just, there's something quite nice about going with tried and tested and still having the functionality of sort of modern controls. So there's a bit of a mishmash, but I think this is the better way to go, certainly for us. And hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of natural light anyway. We're not relying on all sorts of different light modes and things all the time. It's more there for sort of accent lighting, which is why we've gone for 5 amp sort of 3-pin plugs in a lot of places, so we can have feature lighting, whether that's a floor lamp, table lamp, and that can all be controlled by the switch, and in turn by the smart controls as well. Right, he's not normally up here on the building site, although he does have this little site office. I'll show you in a minute. But you want to see your bedroom. So it's gone okay, and I know, having looked back through this edit before I post it, there might be a few questions. So I'm going to try and answer those now. One of which I'll try and guess that it's going to be brought up, which is the ceiling. We are going to use, rather than battening below these steel purlins, we're going to use a track metal suspended ceiling type system. And I think that's probably the best route to go. It's a lower profile and slightly stronger, and not that expensive. So steel profile, like a top hat, I think they call it. So we're going to try that. I'm going to get some samples this week, and we're going to then install an amount of insulation on top of that. So that's more for acoustic than anything, just to cut down on any rain noise and any little creaks and stuff from when the roof expands, which is evident. Hopefully it's going to be less so once we fix down all the eaves, because they're still not secured down, because we hadn't built the stud walls when the roof went on. But apart from that, that's what's going to happen up top. Of course, we need that to go in before we can drop down any more of the sort of partition walls in the bedroom. It's getting heavy. Switch arms. So it's going to be nice to start getting some of these walls up. We're going to do a little bit more this week. Now, the reason why we jumped inside and we're kind of flip-flopping between bits is we're either waiting on materials or it's weather. So at the moment we're waiting on our oak beams. They should be here this week. Now, as soon as the oak beams hit ground, then we should be able to make a start on that. We reckon probably 2 weeks. We've booked out kind of 2 weeks of work to get the 2 big oak frames built, raised and installed. Before that can happen though, there's a little bit of metal trim work around the windows and the stable zones that we need to put, you know, in place. We'll need to get those in place and then pull our measurements from there. So that's going to be exciting. So you won't see too much more indoors, although we're going to carry on until the oak arrives. So we can do a little bit more on the stud walls, and we've also got more floorboards to go down. That's like our constant default. And then once the oak is in, that's when the brick can start. Now, we have been looking at all sorts of brickwork options, and we, as you saw in this video, we had another sample from Imperial. We've had lots of suggestions on Instagram, and we've had prices from our merchants. So Van der Sanden or Van der San is one of the others, and Ibsock, I can't remember all these brands, but anyway, we've had some good suggestions for what we're after. We're not wanting too many darks in there. It's going to be a reclaimed look and more reds, and I think we've found one now. It's well matched to our other buildings that are in the area. Nothing is really adjacent to the barn, but we've found one that we like. It's 4-week wait on that, which is fine because that gives us the 3 or 4 weeks to get all of our oak done. So summer of brickwork is ahead of us. But anyway, there we go. Keeping him awake. I'm looking forward to the oak, and I'm sure a lot of you are as well, because our timber frame videos always seem to be well received. So it shouldn't be long before we can dust off all those tools, all the chisels, the chain mortar, get everything ready. I might even get them all out and sharpened up this week, so there's nothing stopping us getting stuck in straight away. I think he said midweek for the oak, and it should all be sort of in the lengths we need for each section, and of course we'll go into a deep dive in that. Joe and I also had half the number of kids last night, so we came out for half an hour and did a bit of a kitchen tour sort of planning session. That's our island simulated, and we're just trying to work out this walk-in pantry now, because it can't really go where we thought it was. We might put it on the corner now. That's why that bit of timber's there. So more head scratching. I know a lot of people. We've got friends who are building a house at the moment, and or having a house built, and their kind of walls going up, and they've just signed off for their kitchen. We haven't even thought that far ahead. But I guess if you're working with architects and project managers and stuff, then you kind of need to think that far ahead, because you're making decisions, whereas we're probably just going to see what we can afford at the time. But we definitely need to get a feel for this space, and it's easier now. We've got a clear space, blank canvas, and we can start kind of mapping things out. Joe's even cutting her appliances out of cardboard, and I think that's the best way to do it. You know, that's how I work anyway. I'm a practical visual person, and it's easier than just sitting there on some sort of 3D SketchUp and thinking you can guess it all. It's nice to be able to walk around and see what's what. This is the benefit of having this room. It has worked out really well. Obviously we had that party in here the other day, but it's like a safe space, so the dog can go in here, the kids can go in here, and no construction is happening in here, so you can come in and out from outside as well. But there we go. Like a little padded cell for you, isn't it? So you hang out on there, unless we're making too much noise. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed your update. There you go. There's more over on Patreon. There's a few more updates coming this week on Instagram. But hopefully by next week, there'll be something different. We'll be getting stuck into this oak work and back outside in the sunshine. Although we could do with some rain. I know that's grumpy farmer talk, but we could definitely do with some rain. Also, we just dropped a new video over on the farm channel, so if you want to check out that and have a double header, then you could do that. I'll leave a link down in the description. Thanks for watching, and remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time. Say bye. Can you wave? Can you wave? Hi. No.